The world is changing rapidly. Wars and rumors of wars are abundant. Civil unrest, economic collapse, a global economic reset, natural disasters, and the second coming of Jesus Christ is on the horizon. Are you prepared? Welcome to TruthFed.
Greetings, truth seekers, and welcome back to TruthFed. I am your host, Sean Osmond, and today is Wednesday, January 7th, 2015, and it's a cold day in my neck of the woods. Even schools are closed down because it's so cold. With the wind chill, I don't know, 10 below zero, something crazy. And so I'm not looking forward to having to go out and feed and take care of the chickens today. To walk through the snow and to go out there, but we're live. I'm sitting in a heated house, and I just feel extremely blessed. Not behind bars, not in any physical bondage right now. Food in the cupboard, and I have the luxury of being warm in spite of how cold it is outside. So God bless, and I feel very lucky, very blessed today. I want to read a couple of Psalms to you real quick, and then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Shemitah. And I'm going to read a chapter, a very short chapter out of this book I'm reading to you. And then we're going to wrap up the show by reading Daniel chapter 9, which is where we get the 7 years of Daniel, the 7 weeks of Daniel. So I don't know if you've noticed, but every single chapter of the book of Daniel is worth study, especially the second half of the book, which is completely and utterly about the end of days. It's just amazing. This is the second time I've worked through the book of Daniel in the last 30 days or so, and I'm just amazed at how much information is there. And then we're going to read Revelation chapter 5 as well, which is where we have this seal that nobody can open except for Jesus Christ himself. So that's what's in store today. We're going to talk about some earthquakes and stuff like that before we get started, and the Shemitah and Judgement and all of that. I want to start by reading 2 short Psalms. And for whatever reason, God's been pushing me towards these 2 Psalms, and I don't know why. And I have an interesting story of how I came across these. Some of you may not believe it. Some of you may believe it. Either way, I'll share it with you quickly. Just so you know, the supernatural, the things like that, that doesn't take place in my life very often at all. Rarely in my life and my walk with God can I point to an event where I see something physical happen and say, oh my gosh, that is impossible. Something supernatural just took place. I'm not one of those people that happens to very often, and I envy those who have visions and who have all these, visitations from angels and miraculous things taking place. That's not been me. I've had one dream back in 2012. If you're interested in that, you can find it at my website. You just go to truthfed.com. At the top it says Sean's blog. Click on that. And I think it's about the third or fourth blog down. It says Rapture and Chasing Jesus, a dream I had in February of 2012. If you're interested, you're welcome to read that. It's very, very short. But other than that, I haven't had much supernatural experience. But the other morning, or evening, I'm sorry, it was late at night. My wife was asleep, kid was in bed. I was praying, and I had the Bible open, not for a specific reason. I just, for whatever reason, had it open on the floor, and I was praying with my head down to the floor, my face down to the floor, and the page turned. And it startled me, it scared me. I looked around trying to figure out how it was physically possible. I thought, well, maybe it was the ceiling fan, so I'm laying there, but the pages aren't moving at all. I don't know how the page turned, other than to say maybe God was trying to point something out to me, but I've been reading it for the last couple of weeks, and it's anywhere between, if my Bible's open, you've got Psalm 53 through Psalm 57, basically, and I've been reading through it, and I can't figure out what I'm supposed to get from this. And I thought, well, maybe it's not for me. Maybe it's for somebody else. So there's 2 of the Psalms that, for whatever reason, are standing out to me, so I'm going to read them real quickly, just in case there's something here for one of you. and it has nothing to do with me. So let's get started, and then we're going to talk about these earthquakes that took place in Texas. So Psalm 53, the fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt, and they have done abominable iniquity. There is none who does good. God looks down from heaven upon the children of men to see if there are any who understand, who seek God. Every one of them has turned aside. They have together become corrupt. There is none who does good, no, not one. Have the workers of iniquity no knowledge, who eat up my people as they eat bread, and do not call upon God? There they are in great fear, where no fear was. For God has scattered the bones of him who encamps against you. You have put them to shame, because God has despised them. Oh, that the salvation of Israel would come out of Zion. When God brings back the captivity of his people, let Jacob rejoice and Israel be glad. Psalm 57. Be merciful to me, O God, be merciful to me. For my soul trusts in you. And in the shadow of your wings I will make my refuge until these calamities have passed by. I will cry out to the God Most High, to God who performs all things for me. He shall send from heaven and save me. He reproaches the one who would swallow me up. God shall send forth his mercy and his truth. My soul is among lions. I lie among the sons of men who are set on fire, whose teeth are spears and arrows, and their tongue a sharp sword. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be above all the earth. They have prepared a net for my steps. My soul is bowed down. They have dug a pit before me. Into the midst of it they themselves have fallen. My heart is steadfast, O God, my heart is steadfast. I will sing and give praise. Awake, my glory, awake, lute and harp. I will awaken the dawn. I will praise you, O Lord, among the peoples. I will sing to you among the nations, for your mercy reaches unto the heavens, and your truth unto the clouds. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be above all the earth. Very powerful stuff. Very powerful stuff. I will say, when I first looked down at the page after it had been turned, the first line I read was, be merciful to me, O God, be merciful to me. And that's similar to a prayer I pray every single day of my life. Be merciful to me, O God. I think of myself as that tax collector that Jesus told the parable about, sitting in the temple, pounding his chest, saying, show me mercy, a sinner, because that's me. I mean, I'm I've told you over and over, don't think of me as like this perfect or even highly spiritual person. I am a sinful, messed up human being. I challenge Paul for the trophy of being the chief sinner, and I don't say that joyfully. I say that with a broken heart. So I have to, I pray that prayer. I'm on my face, be merciful to me. Oh God, be merciful to me. For my soul trusts in you. And in the shadow of your wings I will make my refuge until these calamities have passed by. You see, what's going on between 53 and 57 is David is basically being betrayed. And he's praying for safety from his enemies, from those who are pursuing him. And so it's an interesting read. If you get time, 53 through 57, it'll take you all of, 10 minutes to read all of those passages. Maybe there's something in there for some of you, for one of you. Maybe for me, and I just haven't found it yet. But either way, powerful, powerful readings. I like this, there is no good. There is no good. Not one. Not one person is good. I hate this idea, well, this so-and-so is a good person, or you'll get this argument, I'm a good person, I've never murdered, I've never, done this, I've never done that, I'm sure God will be kind to me. No, there's no one good. No, not one. There is none who does good. We are all in need of the salvation only found and offered through the Lord Jesus Christ as an atonement for your sins. Because not a single one of us is good. We can't earn it. Yes, we're called to be righteous. Yes, you should be obeying God's commandments. Yes, Jesus says to obey the commandments. Not everyone will enter into the kingdom of heaven, but those who do the will of my Father. Yes, we're called to do. We are called to do. But you cannot be saved by your own good works. It's only through faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, because there's not a single one of us that is good. And we are rushing into these last days, and there's never been a time more urgent in your life for you to fall on your knees and repent and beg for mercy and pray for your country than today. And when we get to Daniel chapter 9 here in a few minutes, we're going to read a great example of what it looks like to pray for a nation, because that's exactly what Daniel does before Gabriel, the angel, appears and interrupts him with another message and another vision of prophecy. But I want us to focus in on what Daniel does. But real quick, we're talking about all these signs. Just this last episode I did on Monday, I was showing you talking about the cows and how we have the Shemitah year and all of that and all these warning signs. And what about all the earth? Have you guys seen all the earthquakes? I mean, every day, just go look for earthquakes in the headlines. We are seeing not just a massive increase over the last year in earthquakes, but tens of thousands of increased earthquakes around the world in various places, just like Jesus said that this would happen. Just last night, 9 earthquakes in Texas. That's not counting the ones I saw in Oklahoma and some of the other states. And that's just in the United States. 9 earthquakes rock North Texas in less than a day. 9 earthquakes, 3 of them greater than a 3.0 in magnitude, rocked the DFW area on Tuesday afternoon and into early Wednesday, knocking items off of walls, causing cracks to appear in the ceilings, and generally rattling nerves across the region. Listen, folks, all the warnings are here. This is just hey, watch out, the big ones are coming. I mean, any day now, maybe even where we live, maybe today, the earth is going to split open with the largest earthquakes to ever hit in the history of the world. And it's going to shake and rattle everything. And we know that there's going to be great earthquakes, some like have never been seen, some that split the earth, because the Bible tells us about it. And we see the birth pangs leading up. I mean, I could literally get on the microphone every day and just spend 30 minutes to an hour reading earthquake headlines from the last 24 hours. That's how many are taking place around the world. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I don't know if you've had a chance to go watch that video that I have up at TruthFed.com that says, "Is God warning us about the 7-year tribulation and famine through a calf gone viral?" It's the very first article at the website. When you click on it, there's a video there that talks a little bit about the Shemitah and this cow, but they also go into a little bit of detail about some of these earthquake numbers. So I'd encourage you to take some time to go check out that video and see some of that information. 9 earthquakes. We are going into the Shemitah year, which, according to Rabbi Jonathan Kahn, is September 25th of 2014 through September 13th of 2015. So we are right in the middle of the Shemitah year right now. Now, some of you may be going, what's the Shemitah? And unless I had about 2 or 3 hours, I couldn't really explain it to you, but here's it in a nutshell. And I'm going to read a little bit from this book real quick to give you some more ideas of what that means for the United States. Basically, the Sabbath year is the Shemitah. It's also called the sabbatical year or the Shevet. It's the 7th year or the 7-year agricultural cycle mandated by the Torah for the land of Israel. And it's still observed by many Jews to this day. And I mean, they don't farm their land, everything, all debt and all of that's really, I mean, you've heard about this, right? At the end of on the 7th year, The homes would be returned to people, debts forgiven. There's no agricultural activity at all. No planting, no pruning, no harvesting. It's forbidden. But the Shemitah year is also known as a year of judgment, pending on what's going on in a particular nation. And I'm going to get into details as to how you qualify to become judged on the Shemitah year by God, and that's what I'm going to get into right now. But the first thing I wanted to let you know is it is believed by people who have studied this, like this Jonathan Kahn, or Khan, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, that the Shemitah year has started. It started in September, and it's going to end right around the final blood moon, which happens to be a super blood moon, to wrap up the tetrad that all fall on Jewish feast days. And if you can write that off and say that that means nothing, I don't know what to say to you. I really, really don't. I don't know how much more powerful it can be, how much more signs in the skies you need to believe. But we are in the Shemitah year right now, and you best believe there will be an economic collapse between now and then. Could I be wrong? Absolutely. But I feel really confident that before September, before this last blood moon or around there, you're going to see the meltdown of the economics, or the global economy, and especially here in the United States. So I'm going to read a quick chapter out of this. It's really, really short. I recommend that you pick up this book so you can learn more about the times that you are living in. It's a quick, simple read. If you go to TruthFed.com, you scroll down about halfway down the page, right after all the links, you see the books that I recommend. The last one there on the list is The Mystery of the Shemitah. I would recommend you check that out. You can pick it up at your local bookstore as well. But here's what it says. And I'm on chapter 7 here, and it talks about the secret. In its first and original context, the Shemitah is connected to Israel. It is the only nation commanded to observe it. And as we have seen, it is still being kept in varying degrees by the observance of that nation. But we are not dealing here with the Shemitah as an observance, but as a prophetic sign, particularly as a warning or manifestation of national judgment. Such a prophetic sign could be given to any nation as long as the nation in some way matches the description or shared the attributes of ancient Israel in 586 BC. In other words, it would have to be, and here's a list of some things that would qualify it: a nation warranting a prophetic warning or manifestation of judgment, a nation in defiance of God's ways. Does that sound like the United States of America? I would say it does. This description could, to varying degrees, fit much of the world's nations, whether religious or secular, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, or communist. Let's narrow it down a bit further with more specific description. So here's some. He's gonna break it down for us and get even more specific on how you qualify to fall under judgment here. A nation, listen to this, a nation that had once known God, but had now turned away from him and rejected his ways. Does that sound like the United States? I sure think it does. This description could match several of the world's Western nations formerly seen as Christian, but now largely post-Christian. Let's narrow it down still further. A civilization established on the Word of God, dedicated to his purposes, and consecrated to his glory from its very inception. Now, the field of candidates is severely reduced. It can be argued that only 2 civilizations in human history. This is so powerful, guys, and most Americans just don't grasp this, but it's the truth. America is one of two nations in the history of the world, to do this. And we ruined it, we squandered it, we threw it away. Listen to this. Now, the field of candidates is severely reduced. It can be argued that only 2 civilizations in human history were established, dedicated, and consecrated to the will, the word, the purposes, and the glory of God from the moment of their conception. The first was Israel, and the second was America. American civilization was established and dedicated at Cape Henry, Plymouth, and Massachusetts Bay to the purposes of God. But let's take it even further. A civilization specifically established after the pattern of ancient Israel. Most would find it surprising to learn that America was consciously, intentionally, and specifically founded and formed after the patterns of ancient Israel. Its founders saw it as New Israel, the Israel of the New World. I've even had people come to my comments and say, don't you understand that America can't be Babylon? It's Israel. I mean, some people make this connection. They literally think that the United States is what is Israel in the last days. It's not. I believe strongly that it's not. I believe strongly that the United States is the great Babylon. But it's important to note that this country was founded and formed after the patterns of ancient Israel and for the purposes of God. We know that when we read the testimony of the founders. It was their exodus from Europe, like the Hebrew exodus from Egypt. The New World was their new promised land, and Massachusetts Bay Colony was their new Jerusalem. As for the legal system of the new America Commonwealth, the Puritans sought to incorporate the law of Moses. They instituted a day of rest after the pattern of the Hebrew Sabbath. Do you remember the days when you couldn't buy gas on Sundays? Here in Indiana, you still can't buy alcohol on Sunday because there was a time when this country, believe it or not, it wasn't that long ago, observed the Sabbath. Nobody worked because our 10 Commandments were posted in our Capitol buildings. Remember this? And in our schools. This country was founded after these laws, the laws of Moses, like this book says. They instituted a day of rest after the pattern of the Hebrew Sabbath, and on the American holiday, Thanksgiving was formed after the pattern of the Hebrew Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles. They named the mountains of America after mountains of Israel: Mount Gilead, Mount Hermon, Mount Ephraim, Mount Morah, Mount Carmel, Mount Zion. They called their towns and cities Jericho, Jordan, Salem, Canaan, Goshen, Hebron, and Beersheba. You may live in some of those towns. They named their children Joshua, Rachel, Ezra, Zechariah, Esther, Jeremiah, and a host of other names derived from the people of ancient Israel. They even taught Hebrew in the schools and universities. On the seal of the Yale University appear the Hebrew words from the breastplate of the high priest. On the seal of Columbia University appears the ancient Hebrew name for God. And on the seal of Dartmouth University appear the Hebrew words translating to the Almighty God. Most people don't know that these colleges that are completely corrupt and evil now were all found as Christian colleges. We're almost finished here. America, linked to ancient Israel, has undergirded its national identity. In one form or another, consciously or unconsciously, from the time of its inception onward, it is clearly evident at the time of American independence when Benjamin Franklin proposed that the new nation's great seal should feature the image of Moses parting the Red Sea, while Thomas Jefferson proposed that the Israelites journeying through the wilderness. The connection is unique, deep, and intrinsic. The pattern of ancient Israel is embedded in the DNA of American civilization. It is the root from which America sprang. One observer wrote this: "No Christian community in history identified more with the people of the book than did early settlers of Massachusetts Bay Colony, who believed their own lives to be literal reenactment of biblical drama of the Hebrew nation." There is no nation in modern world so deeply linked to the ancient Israel as America. There is therefore no stage or platform on earth so well suited for the manifesting of the mystery of the Shemitah as America. Is the Israel connection necessary for the mystery to manifest? No. It could manifest to any nation, just as God could send a warning of national judgment to any nation. No unique connection to ancient Israel is needed for America to be given a biblical sign of national judgment. But the fact that America does bear such a deep connection to ancient Israel makes it all the more striking and fitting for the same signs used to warn Israel of judgment to warn America. But a key factor is still missing. Why would the sign of the Shemitah, an ancient portent of judgment, be given to America in the first place? The answer lies in a metamorphosis that began thousands of years before America was born. Israel was unique among the nations of the ancient world. No nation had ever been brought into existence so directly connected to the purposes and promises of God. No nation had ever been given divine revelation as that which was given to Israel on Mount Sinai. No nation had ever seen the hand of God so directly affecting its course as had Israel. And no nation had ever been joined to God in a national covenant. But at the peak of its blessing, a metamorphosis began. The nation began turning away from God of their foundation. The change was suitable at first, but in time grew more and more blatant and brazen. See if you notice a connection here, folks, between ancient Israel and the United States of America, if you haven't already made that. Whether by conscious intent or unconscious abandonment, the people began driving God out of their lives, out of their culture, out of their government, and out of the instruction of their children. In his place they brought in idols and foreign gods, and in place of his ways they now followed the ways of pagan nations that surrounded them. They redefined what was right and wrong. They created a new morality to replace the old. They called evil good and good evil. What they had once celebrated, they now condemned, and what they had once worshipped, they now reviled. And on the other hand, what they had once condemned, they now celebrated, and what they had once reviled, they now worshipped. That is the United States if I have ever seen it. Everything good we call evil, everything evil we call good. What we used to cherish and celebrate, we now revile and persecute. And what we used to hate, the wickedness that we used to hate, we now celebrate it and worship it. Oh my gosh. They grew increasingly carnal, materialistic, sexually immoral, and self-indulgent in their culture. Likewise, grew increasingly coarse and vulgar. And then, as did the nations surrounding them, they began to lift up their children as sacrifices on the altars of their new gods. As for those in their midst who refused to go along with their moral and spiritual apostasy, those who remained faithful to God and his ways, they were now marginalized, mocked, vilified, and finally persecuted. The nation that had been brought into existence to be a vessel of God's purposes had now transformed into its very opposite, a civilization turned in upon itself, at war against its own foundations, and at war with God. This is the setting and the stage, the nation to which the warnings, the signs, the harbingers, and the manifestations of national judgment are sent, one of which is the sign of the Shemitah. So what about America? What happened to the civilization so uniquely joined from its foundation to ancient Israel? America's founders prophesied that inasmuch as new civilization would follow the ways of God, it would be blessed with the blessings given to Israel. And what they foretold came true. America became the most blessed nation on earth. By the 20th century, it had become the most prosperous, the most secure, and the most revered, and the most powerful nation on earth. But at the pinnacle of its power, and at the height of its prosperity relative to the rest of the world, a metamorphosis began. The Israel of the New World would reenact the apostasy and fall of Israel of the ancient world. America now began a progression that would end the nation's turning away from God of its foundations. The metamorphosis was subtle at first, but in time would grow more and more blatant and brazen, as did ancient Israel. So now America began removing God from its national life, from its culture, its government, its public squares. It would ban prayer and the reading of Scripture from instruction of children. The school system had come into existence for the purpose of teaching God's Word. Now treat the Word as contraband. And that is so true. How many articles do we see on a regular basis where children's Bibles are taken away from them at school, or they're suspended? For what? For having the Word of God. It's contraband now. Used to, they taught it in school. Now it's contraband. And as America eliminated the presence of God from its national life and culture, it filled the void with idols and formed gods out of its desires, as did ancient Israel. America progressively redefined what was right and wrong, adopting a new morality to replace the old. It now called evil good and good evil. What it had once celebrated, it now condemned. and what it had once worshipped it now reviled. And on the other hand, what it had once condemned it now celebrated, and what it had once reviled it now worshipped. American culture grew increasingly carnal, materialistic, coarse, vulgar, self-indulgent. Instead of being a light to the world as its founders had envisioned, America was now saturating the world with pornography. And while Israel had killed thousands of its children on altars of its new God, America killed not thousands but millions. Millions of its unborn children on the altars of its pleasures and convenience. Its collective hands were covered in blood. As for those within America who refused to go along with its moral and spiritual paucity, those remained faithful to God and his ways. They were now increasingly marginalized in the nation's newly apostate culture, mocked in its media, vilified in its public discourse, and increasingly in danger of persecution. America brought into existence and dedicated by its founders to be a vessel of God's purposes had now transformed into a very opposite, a civilization turned in upon itself, at war against its own foundations and at war with God. Those who founded America not only foretold its future blessings, but also gave warning. It was this: if America ever turned away from God, then the same judgments that fell upon ancient Israel would fall upon America. The appearance of the same harbingers in America that had once appeared in the last days of ancient Israel matches their prophecies. That is a ton of truth. Oh, we have fallen so far. What I just read should be cutting you to the heart. Our judgment is at hand. Rightfully so. The warnings have been there over and over and over. God has been patient for over a decade, even decades. God has sent prophets and watchmen to warn. But they're scoffed at, laughed, vilified. And now it's here. The only hope, if there's any, is a great, massive repentance by the saints of God in this country, for the churches to speak truth to their congregations and to get on their knees and beg for God's great mercy. That is the only way this turns around. Otherwise, like ancient Israel, this country will burn, and the remaining survivors of its people will go into captivity of the enemy. Believe that. I think Daniel's prayer in Daniel chapter 9 is fitting. I'm not going to read Revelation chapter 5 today. We're going to finish with Daniel chapter 9, Daniel's prayer for the people. I pray that you listen and maybe take the same posture, the same attitude as Daniel, and to fall on your knees before the Lord Jesus Christ and beg for great mercy. Beg that you be found worthy to escape all the things coming upon the earth and to stand before the Son of Man. Beg that you be found with a vessel overflowing with oil. Beg that you be found to be a wise virgin, not a foolish one. Beg that you would be spared from the hour of trial, that you would persevere. Beg that God would create a great revival and a great awakening in this country, because judgment is at the door, knocking. Daniel chapter 9. In the first year of Darius, the son of Ahasuerus, of the lineage of the Medes, who is made king over the realm of the Chaldeans, in the first year of his reign, I, Daniel, understood by the books the numbers of the 7 years of the years specified by the word of the Lord through Jeremiah the prophet, that he would accomplish 70 years in the desolations of Jerusalem. Then I set my face toward the Lord God to make a request by prayer and supplications with fasting, sackcloth, and ashes. And I prayed to the Lord my God and made a confession and said, O Lord, great and awesome God, who keeps his covenant and mercy with those who love him, and with those who keep his commandments. We have sinned and committed iniquity. We have done wickedly and rebelled, even by departing from your precepts and your judgments. Neither have we heeded your servants, the prophets, who spoke in your name to the kings and our princes, to our fathers and all the people of the land. O Lord, righteousness belongs to you, but to us shame of face, as it is this day. The men of Judah, to the inhabitants of Jerusalem and all Israel, those near, those far off, in all countries to which you have driven them, because of the unfaithfulness which they have committed against you. O Lord, to us belongs shame of face, to our kings, to our princes, to our fathers, because they have sinned against you. To the Lord our God belong mercy and forgiveness, though we have rebelled against him. We have not obeyed the voice of the Lord our God to walk in his laws, which he set before us by his servants the prophets. Yes, all Israel has transgressed your law and has departed so as not to obey your voice. Therefore the curse and the oath written in the law of Moses, the servant of God, have been poured out on us, because we have sinned against him. And he has confirmed in his words which he spoke against us and against our judges who judge us, by bringing upon us a great disaster. For under the whole heaven such has never been done as what has been done to Jerusalem. As it is written in the law of Moses, all this disaster has come upon us. Yet we have not made our prayer before the Lord our God, that we might turn from our iniquities and understand your truth. Therefore the Lord has kept the disaster in mind and brought it upon us. For the Lord our God is righteous in all the works which he does, though we have not obeyed his voice. And now, O Lord our God, who brought your people out of the land of Egypt with a mighty hand and made yourself a name, as it is this day, we have sinned, we have done wickedly. O Lord, according to all your righteousness, I pray, let your anger, let your fury be turned away from your city Jerusalem, your holy mountain, because for our sins and for the iniquities of our fathers, Jerusalem and your people are a reproach to all those around us. Now therefore, our God, hear the prayer of your servant and his supplications, and for the Lord's sake cause your face to shine on your sanctuary, which is desolate. O my God, incline your ear and hear. Open your eyes and see our desolations, and the city which is called by your name. For we do not present our supplications before you because of our righteous deeds, but because of your great mercies. O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, listen and act. Do not delay for your own sake. My God, for your city and your people are called by your name. Now while I was speaking, praying, and confessing my sin and the sin of my people Israel, and presenting my supplication before the Lord my God for the holy mountain of my God, yes, while I was speaking in prayer, the man Gabriel, who I had seen in the vision at the beginning, being caused to fly swiftly, reached me about the time of the evening offering. And he informed me and talked with me and said, O Daniel, I have now come forth to give you skill to understand. At the beginning of your supplications, the command went out, and I have come to tell you, for you are greatly beloved. Therefore, consider the matter and understand the vision. 70 weeks are determined for your people and for your holy city, to finish the transgressions, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring an everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The streets shall be built again, and the wall, even in troublesome times. And after the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince, who is to come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end of it shall be with a flood. Until the end of the war, desolations are determined. Then he shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week, but in the middle of the week he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering, and on the wing of abominations shall be one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out on the desolate. Now, obviously, we have the description of this 7 years. We see how the Messiah is cut off, which we've already seen when he was killed. And then we have this leader who comes along, makes a covenant, breaks the covenant, puts an end to sacrifices and offerings, and we have the abomination of desolation that takes place. Jesus even said that that particular passage is about the last days. But what I want to focus on right now, because we're talking about our nation, and we're talking about this need for God's people to repent. First of all, verse 19, I have written on my whiteboard, and I look at it often. It says, "O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. O Lord, listen and act. Do not delay." I pray that so often. Do not delay. For your own sake. Daniel's saying, for your own sake. You might be saying, well, why does God need to not delay for his own sake? Because he prophesied through Jeremiah that at the end of 70 years, that his people would be released. And Daniel says that he knows that this is taking place. See, you can know things. You can know even times. From what? From the scriptures. This is how Daniel understood by the books the number of years specified by the word of the Lord through Jeremiah the prophet. Daniel was studying the word of God, the prophecy of Jeremiah, and he says, hey, this is the time we're living in. I know it because right here it tells me. And that's what we're doing right now. And I'm saying the same thing. Don't delay for your own sake, because your word says that this is taking place. Daniel says, "O Lord, hear. O Lord, forgive. Listen and act. Do not delay for your own sake, my God, for your city and your people are called by your name." And I want you to look at, I'm going to wrap it up with this. This attitude that Daniel had when he prayed. Some key things I want to point out. He was praying. He was confessing his own sins. But not just his own sins. Notice how Daniel had sins to confess. You see, none of us are good. No, not one. He says, now while I was speaking, I was praying, I was confessing my sins and the sins of my people. We need to be repenting for the sins of our people. We're like Isaiah. We're surrounded by people with unclean lips, which makes us have unclean lips. We need to pray. We need to confess our sin, confess the sins of our people. And then he says, presenting supplication before the Lord. I hope that's your attitude today. I hope that when you get on your knees, you say, God, forgive me, a sinner. God, forgive my people. I'm surrounded by wicked people. I myself am wicked. None of us are good. No, not one. Dear God, hear us. Dear God, forgive us. Dear God, listen and act. Don't delay. I hope this episode blessed you guys today. If it did, I'd love to know about it. Peace and grace be with you. God bless.